Not a Dirty Word, the podcast that shows you how to convert 8 out of 10 sales conversations without acting like a douchebag. I'm your host, innovative sales coach Aleasha Bahr, the creator of the Black Sheep Sales Method. Because if it's a fit, it's a fact, and there's no selling involved. If you're a service provider selling your own service and you're ready to sell differently than the mainstream status quo and win more sales without pressure pitching or pretending to be someone else, then this is for you. If you want to know more about how to customize your sales strategy and messaging to your personality, then go to Aleashabahr.com. Okay, so this episode is going to be about objection prevention. So mainstream sales definitely focuses on objections being this big battle that happen at the end of a sales conversation. And people just dread it, right? And you're supposed to almost ignore any objections that might come up in the conversation before that and save them for the end, or you're definitely not supposed to prompt them, right? So the issue with that is that everyone's tired at the end of the conversation, and to have this back and forth that puts you in a defensive place where you're basically fighting uphill to try and get somebody to move forward. Like, it just has a lot of convincing energy with it, instead of it being this transparent conversation that happens throughout your exchange. So there's a whole lot of time to prompt and prevent objections during discovery and during your quote unquote pitch or explanation of services or whatever. And the thing about it is that people often don't say an objection in a way that's like, listen, I have an objection here. It sounds like this is going to be too complicated for me. Like, they just usually don't present it like that, because they know that when they present it in the way where it's an objection, that the other person is going to try and overcome it or convince them out of it or whatever. Just like, mainstream sales tells you to do at the end of a sales conversation. And that's why it doesn't work as effectively either, because they just assume that you're trying to convince them to buy, right? So objections a lot of times are in the form of questions and comments. And this is something that I work with a lot with my clients, because it is so easy to ignore a comment or dismiss it or not catch it, or ignore a question or just answer the question very literally. And it's a huge missed opportunity because it's an objection signal, right? So let me give you an example of this, because you might be like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Recently in a sales conversation, someone's like, okay, and then there's only this many one-on-ones. So some people might just answer that literally, right? Yeah, there's only this many one-on-ones. Instead, it's like, yes, is there a concern? Do you feel like that's going to be enough support for you? Do you feel like you need more one-on-ones? Why do you feel like you need more one-on-ones? If you just factually answered, just literally answered the question, it actually doesn't satisfy the real question, which is this enough one-on-one support for me and what I need and the result that I need to get? So you really want to keep an eye out for these objection signals throughout the conversation. So for example, one of my clients, he helps people set up these high ticket drop shipping e-commerce stores. And during discovery, people will be like, yeah, so I mean, how do you find the right suppliers? And before we worked together, my client would tell them how to find the right suppliers, which is not actually what they were asking. They're asking, is it going to be hard to find suppliers? Is it going to be easy to find suppliers? Like, is it time consuming? They could have been asking any of those things, right? So you really want to get curious and say, what makes you ask that? Are you concerned that there might not be enough suppliers? Are you concerned it'll be very time consuming? Like, what is the concern there? And then you're able to answer the real question, because if you just literally answer how to find the right suppliers, the person, first of all, isn't going to retain any of that information, but also that objection is going to come up later in the conversation. They're going to say, like, it sounds complicated. It sounds like it's out of reach or it's not realistic for me. Or maybe they won't even say anything. They'll just not move forward and you're not sure why. And that's a lot of times what these objection signals are. They are little flags that you want to note that are going to add up to the person not feeling confident in moving forward. So maybe there's like a throwaway comment like, yeah, I've always heard that that's like takes like 6 months, and somebody might be like, just ignore that somebody said that. And you can say, yeah, I mean, is 6 months a long time to you? Like, how long are you wanting it to take? Right. Because that comment is a comment about it being too long, too short, what, right? We don't want to guess at what it is, but it's a signal that there's something deeper there and there's something behind that to dig into. So another example could be like, how much tech is included? Is there a lot of tech included? If technology proficiency is something that is important for your offer and this scares people, you want to prompt this objection even. You want to ask like, how do you feel about technology? Do you feel comfortable learning? Do you feel comfortable with video? Any of those questions so that upfront, like proactively, you can talk those through instead of it coming to bite you at the end of the conversation. So you do want to think about what are the common patterns in objections that I hear or in concerns that I hear or hesitations or whatever, and create questions around those repetitive situations so that you can have that conversation up front instead of it landing at the end. Because mainstream sales says not to quote unquote put objections in someone's head, right? Let's not bring them up. Well, if they're going to come up anyway, I would rather them come up with me, right? I want to talk that through with them because a lot of times people, walk away from the call. That's when the objections come up in their mind. They're not talking to you anymore. Or they just don't even mention them. They just don't move forward. There's things that didn't line up for them. So I am a huge, in my experience, proponent of prompting these objections early. And then what I really want you to take away from this episode is the objection signals. That when somebody, makes a comment that seems kind of like it doesn't fit into the conversation, or it seems like a little bit negative in the conversation, that you want to dig deeper. And the same when they ask a question, I want you to think, what is behind this question? If somebody asks, what time are the calls? Are you concerned you won't be able to make them? What does your schedule look like? You know? Um, I didn't even get to answer how much tech is included. Is there concern about technology? How do you feel about it? What's your experience with it, right? You want to be alerted that there's something going on here to get curious about, because those are the moments that sales are lost. I cannot tell you how many times I see that you have to be able to hear what they're not saying as much as what they're saying, because people are not as direct as we would like them to be for a long list of reasons that we don't need to go into. That's a variety of reasons, right? And for that reason, you need to be in tune with what they're saying and what they're not saying. And do this throughout your conversation so that you can avoid um, getting slammed with a bunch of stuff at the end of the conversation where everyone's tired, or even worse, you just hear like, let me think about it, or not right now, or ghosting, or whatever. So anyway, I hope this is helpful for you guys. And this is something that I work on with all of my clients through these weekly calls where we get together and you act as the buyer on someone else's offer. And a lot of things click for you that don't click the same when you're in the selling position, because you remember what it's like to be on the receiving end of something, right? So there's a lot of like, hold on, wait, do you feel like you can trust this person? Does it feel like this person's selling you? Does it feel like you want to buy for them? Does it feel like this person answered your question? Does it feel like you're lost in this conversation? Does it feel like you are clear in this conversation? And so much clarity comes from those meetings in a very visceral way so that it's something you can repeat later, because the only way to really train yourself for these softer skills, because it's literally impossible to script a sales conversation, there's two humans in it. So you have to have soft skills that allow you to adjust depending on what your prospect's asking or saying or doing. And curiosity with questions and comments is a big piece of it. And it's not so natural for people. So that repetition is going to be what creates that skill, so that you don't miss those crucial moments that might seem really innocuous in the moment. So like when I review somebody's sales call, I can usually it's like, I only look at calls if it was somebody who wanted, needed, and could afford it and did not move forward and we're not sure why. And in those situations, it's always some situation like this where like you didn't catch that, you didn't ask about that. That's where I would guess that this sale was lost. So I hope this is helpful for you guys. If it is, please like, share, subscribe, leave a review. That stuff makes such a difference. And until next time.